But I want to start right out of the gate with something hot, as always. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about guns, about the Second Amendment in this country, about your right to self-defense. It's a little bit different over in Canada. And I was looking around. I saw some stuff this weekend from Prime Minister Trudeau, who I also call Bully Trudeau. Remember when he bullied the non-violent truckers in Canada who were fighting against the vaccine mandate? Remember when he went into hiding, too? Yeah. Went into hiding.
For 3 weeks.
Yeah. He was afraid. He was afraid that there were going to be, what was going to go on. And then he decided that, like any true authoritarian bully, he was going to lock the bank accounts of those who were contributing to the truckers. So, Trudeau knows zero about freedom, cares zero about freedom. And like all bullies, he had a little bit of something to say about the Second Amendment, both in the United States and in Canada. So if you have that clip, let's run that clip and then we'll talk about it.
And there are debates. And we have a culture where the difference is guns can be used for hunting or for sport shooting in Canada. And there's lots of gun owners, and they're mostly law-respecting and law-abiding. But you can't use a gun for self-protection in Canada. That's not a right that you have in the Constitution or anywhere else. If you try and buy a gun and say it's for self-protection, no, you don't get that. You get it for hunting. You can get it for sport shooting. You can take it to the range, no problem, as long as you go through our rigorous background checks. But there's a difference around the culture. And one of the things that we're seeing with the debate in the States is you get more and more of the American-style, right to carry, self-defense arguments filtering up through the usual more right-wing communications channels.
Yeah.
Oh, the American-style freedom fighters. They really make his blood boil. He's an insufferable human. I don't know how else to say it. There are some politicians that you just disagree with, and you're like, you know what? They may be a fundamentally decent person. I just see the world differently from the way that they do. This guy makes my skin, I feel like I have bugs on me. Literal bugs on me when I'm watching him speak. How unbelievably condescending. Canada, I'm sure, is a beautiful place. The scenery, everything. I am very glad I don't live in Canada. I would be losing my mind under that guy for many reasons. But how unbelievably condescending to say to people, well, you can have your guns for sport. You can have your guns for hunting, but you're not going to have them for self-defense. So if someone shows up at your doorstep to rob you, sorry. I mean, can you imagine? And I showed this clip not just because I think he's an authoritarian that we need to acknowledge exists, is popular. Some people really like him. Some people in this country really like him. So I think you need to say to yourself, do you ever want the United States of America to turn into Canada? To turn into what's going on there right now? You saw what happened with the truckers. You see what he's saying. He's not shy. It's not like in the United States where you at least have Democrats who are oftentimes reluctant to say things like, okay, we're not going to take your guns. We just want some gun restrictions in place. Of course, many of them want to take your guns. That's a reality. They do. They would love that. But they're not going to say it outright, because if they said that, there would be a revolution in this country. He says it outright. Trudeau, he just puts it right out there. Imagine the audacity to say that with a straight face and to just be like, yeah, that American-style freedom, it's just creeping up. You should be so lucky. You should be so lucky, and you have been so lucky. Many of us looked at those truckers in Canada and wondered, why aren't we doing that here? Why did it take something happening in Canada? Why are those people mobilized in a way that a lot of people in cities around this country should have been mobilized? Yeah, you saw protests here and there, but you didn't see that. We should have seen that here when those vax mandates hit. I was waiting for it. I was going to be out there, with my sign, waving it around. It wasn't happening. I did go to a couple of protests, and I was grateful that they existed, but should have been bigger, should have been bolder. Regardless, if you don't want the United States to turn into Canada on issues like that, if you don't want an authoritarian like that to have that kind of power, speak up, do something. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't sit back and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. Now's not the time to sit it out. So that's just your reminder, your friendly reminder of what is capable of happening in this country if you sit down and shut up. It's possible. It's 100% possible. And I just want to remind you of that slippery slope, because several years ago, we were talking about Obamacare, and we were talking about, Tyler, you remember when we were talking about mandates? They were mandating that you had to have health insurance. And the fight was like, no, you shouldn't have to have health insurance if you don't want to have health insurance. Now we're talking about mandating an experimental vaccine. It's like you must get an injection. So that slippery slope, very slippery. Remember that slip and slide you went on when you were a kid? Yeah, that's it. And it's faster and faster and faster. That's all the time that I want to give to Trudeau because that's all the time he deserves.
Well, real quick, do you think Canada is salvageable? He just won an election in 2021. I think he's up again in 2023.
So I think not anywhere. I think a lot of places are salvageable, but it depends on people. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the appetite is there for resistance. You saw some of that with the truckers. I was grateful to see that. I don't know what segment of the population really is utterly disgusted with what's going on and how many people are angry and then how many people are just complacent.
Right.
So that I would need to have a greater sense of what's going on the ground there. I know that here, there's a lot of people that just kind of sit back, but they push too far this time. Right. They push too far because they came for the kids, right? So I think this whole notion of pushback is really coming from a lot of parents.
Right.
It's like you'll endure, and you may know this as a parent too. You'll endure a lot of stuff, but once it gets to your kid, you're like, leave my kid alone.
Right.
I don't know if you feel that way. But.
No, absolutely. And I was going to mention this yesterday, but we even talked about this today on Pat's podcast. You're starting to see some companies push back. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago, Netflix came out with the memo that says, you as an employee, you may not like all of the content that we produce, but we're still going to produce it anyway.
Right.
And they were the first to take a stand. Now, how long that lasts and whether other companies follow suit is, another story. But like we talked about yesterday, you're seeing Daily Wire produce their own content. Mm-hmm. Netflix is standing up. These companies they're starting to get sick and tired because it's affecting their bottom line. Yeah. So not just from the parents, but it's going to be good to see what kind of pushback we get from corporate America.
Yeah, I think my concern is that they get away with a lot when it comes to health. When they can scare you, that's the one area where they realize now they scared a lot of people. And I talked about this yesterday. They scared me. They scared a lot of people. And they got away with so much that now there's a barometer of like, so if we scare the population, we can do X, Y, and Z. And look how much control they were able to execute over people's individual health decisions and individual lives and where they work and where they live. And a lot went into and their own business and whether or not they can put food on the table for their own family for a business that they worked in and put, blood, sweat, and tears toward for many, many years. So I do think there's pushback. I don't know. I don't know where this is going yet. And I think the midterm elections are going to say a lot. And I think the next presidential election is going to say a lot. But what I do hear are a lot of people out there that are like, wow, we sat tight too long. Mm-hmm. And now they're some of the loudest ones. The ones like me who were like, I was wiping down my packages on day one, we're some of the loudest ones. We're like, oh, you played me for a hot minute? Not going to happen again. If you like the short clip, you can catch another one here, or you can catch the full episode right here.